Picture the Garden of Eden, right? Soft, dappled light filtering through lush leaves, ripe fruit practically dripping off every branch. A lazy river curling gently through emerald grass. It's a postcard, isn't it? A serene, idyllic paradise. Now scratch that postcard. Tear it up. Replace that tranquil river with a roaring sluice box, those overflowing fruit trees with ore carts groaning under heavy loads, and that sly serpent with a stern foreman, clipboard in hand, tallying up precisely how many grams of gold you managed to pull today. Shocking? Good. Because if you peel back the layers of myth and translation, the ancient Sumerian texts don't actually call the place Eden at all. They call it E.DIN, home of the righteous ones. And the job description posted there? Well, it was pretty simple. Dig, sift, and don't ask too many questions. Stick around. By the end of this, we're going to test whether Genesis is actually hiding a company handbook for what might just be the very first off-world mining operation. Get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about paradise. Open up Genesis, and what's one of the first things you find Adam doing? He's put in the garden to dress and keep it. Sounds pretty benign, doesn't it? Like gardening, maybe some light landscaping. But here's the kicker. The Hebrew word avad means both till and serve. Think about that for a second. It's the exact same root word used for the workers toiling away in King Solomon's mines, for example. Suddenly, dressing and keeping starts to sound a whole lot more like labor, doesn't it? Eve shows up a little later in the narrative, but Adam clocks in alone, gets told not to touch one specific tree, a clear, unambiguous instruction, a safety protocol, if you will. And the penalty for breaking that protocol? Death. Classic worksite language, wouldn't you say? Failure to comply will result in termination. It's less about moral failing and more about contract breach. Meanwhile, just up the Persian Gulf, Sumerian scribes were scratching out cuneiform tablets that described their gods, the Anunnaki, doing something eerily similar. Setting up a base in a place called Eridu, establishing a clearly demarcated, even gated orchard, and then assigning lesser beings to extract mineral wealth. Are these just parallel stories? A strange coincidence? Or is one story borrowing heavily from the other's HR manual, perhaps just changing the names for proprietary reasons? The similarities are too striking to ignore. The Anunnaki pantheon, at its very foundation, begins with An, the sky, and ends with Kai, the earth. Think of them as the ultimate cosmic investors, the foundational venture capitalists of their time. Their offspring, led by the formidable Enlil and the cunning Enki, supposedly descend to the Apsu, a region often identified with Southeast Africa, specifically looking for gold. But why gold? What's so special about this shiny heavy metal? The Sumerians themselves tell us it was to fix the atmosphere of their home world, Nibiru, a planetary environmental crisis requiring a very specific, rare element. Whatever their ultimate motive, the tablets from Ashurbanipal's ancient library paint a vivid picture, describing the E.DIN not as some ethereal paradise, but as a heavily fenced enclosure where workers carry shining dust, pile it in bags, bring it to the great sorter. Does that sound like a leisurely stroll through an orchard to you? Or does it sound a lot more like a way station just outside a bustling mine, where raw materials are processed and accounted for? And here's the crucial point. Something we absolutely cannot forget. These Sumerian tablets predate the Hebrew Bible by at least a millennium. So if anyone was copying homework, if anyone was adapting an existing narrative, it most certainly wasn't the Sumerians. They had the original blueprint. Zecharia Sitchin, the controversial but influential scholar, popularized the idea that the name Adam isn't just from the Hebrew Adamah, meaning ground or earth, but also potentially from the Akkadian Adamah, which refers to a specific type of red clay. Red clay, you know, the kind of earth you'd be digging into. The Anunnaki, according to these interpretations, weren't just looking for labor, they were looking for suitable labor. They supposedly mixed their own sophisticated blood with the DNA of native hominids, creating a new optimized worker, smarter, more adaptable, and perhaps even lighter boned for easier movement in tunnels or carrying loads. Genesis then gives Adam a kind of rapid learning upgrade, and the man became a living soul. This isn't just about breathing, it's about becoming sentient, self-aware, capable of complex thought. The first self-aware paycheck earner, if you will, suddenly capable of understanding their role and their value. And that forbidden tree? Many scholars interpret it as symbolic of moral knowledge. But what if the Sumerian word mu is key? It can mean both knowledge and reckoning, as in counting or keeping inventory. If Adam and Eve were suddenly able to reckon, to count, to understand value, they might realize they were being shortchanged. What happens when workers realize they're being exploited? They unionize. They demand better terms. Cue the expulsion from the site, the flaming security gates flashing a stark warning, and those cherubim with their rotating firearms, ancient turnstiles perhaps, ensuring no unauthorized re-entry to the most valuable corporate asset. Genesis 6 drops one of the wildest lines in the entire Bible. There were giants in those days. The sons of God saw the daughters of men. It's a passage that has puzzled theologians for centuries. The Hebrew word for giants, Nephilim, isn't just about size. It literally translates to the fallen ones. Now let's look at the Sumerian tablets, and you'll find a striking parallel with the Agigi. Who were the Agigi? They were a class of lesser Anunnaki, divine beings who were tasked with the heavy lifting, the grunt work of the mining operation. After decades of backbreaking, shuttle-loading ore, they rebelled. Their complaint? It sounds like a universal labor dispute. The work is heavy, we can't keep doing this. They were exhausted, fed up, perhaps even striking. The solution, according to the Sumerian narrative, was to create a new class of beings, hybrid overseers. These weren't just big, they were specifically designed, tall and strong enough to lift those massive 50-kilo sacks of ore without suffering debilitating back strain. Imagine customized genes for middle management. If you've ever wondered why so many ancient cultures, from the Indus Valley to the Andes, feature colossal figures with elongated skulls in their art and architecture, the answer might not be aliens, but rather highly specialized, genetically modified middle management, built for purpose. These Nephilim, or Agigi, could be seen as the Watchers mentioned in the Book of Enoch, divine beings who descended and interacted with humanity, often in a supervisory or even rebellious capacity, echoing the Anunnaki's role. The biblical account of Eden doesn't just describe a pretty garden, it gives us geographical markers. Genesis names 4 distinct rivers flowing from Eden: the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. Now, only the last 2 still exist today, clearly identifiable on any modern map. But here's where it gets fascinating. Modern satellite imaging has revealed 2 ancient, extinct riverbeds, clearly visible scars on the landscape, running down from the Iranian highlands directly into the Persian Gulf. And guess where those rivers would have converged? Precisely in the region where the Sumerians built Eridu, their foundational city. Even more telling, this exact area holds some of the world's richest placer gold deposits. We're not talking about a few flakes. We're talking about significant, accessible gold. British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley, when he dug up the royal tombs of Ur, uncovered gold leaf so exquisitely fine, so masterfully worked, that it still can't be duplicated today without the aid of modern tooling and technology. Think about that for a moment. Where did all that metal come from? Was it just a local Costco of ancient precious metals? Or was it extracted from the very same hills that Adam's crew was, perhaps ordered to dress and keep, to survey and manage for its rich resources? This isn't just a garden, it's a geological survey map. God rests on the 7th day. It's a foundational tenet in many faiths, often interpreted as a spiritual example for humanity to follow. But let's consider the Anunnaki texts. They record that after 6 days of intense labor, of erecting the city of Eridu and establishing their operations, the Great Ones paused to bathe, to feast, to let the dust settle. Do you hear the echoes? It's the same cadence, the same rhythm of work and rest. This wasn't necessarily a purely spiritual rest, it was profoundly logistical. Think about any large-scale operation. especially something as demanding as mining. Conveyor belts need maintenance, heavy machinery breaks down, even 3,000-year-old sluice gates get clogged with silt and debris. Workers get tired. Equipment needs downtime. The Sabbath in this light isn't just holy, it's practically union-mandated downtime, a necessary break for both the crew and the machinery to prevent burnout and ensure efficiency. It's a scheduled maintenance period, a crucial component of any successful long-term project. The story of the forbidden fruit is usually framed as humanity's original sin, leading to the loss of immortality and eviction from paradise. But what if it was something far more prosaic, yet equally profound? In Sumerian myth, the wise god Enki offers Adapa, a prototype for Adam, the first intelligent human, access to every resource, every blessing, except for the bread of life and the water of life. These vital benefits, if you will, were stored away, guarded. The implication? If you accepted these provisions, you were essentially on the payroll forever, bound to the system. Refuse them, and you remain mortal, outside the system, free but ultimately finite. Adapa, in a moment of tragic misunderstanding, refuses, thinking it's a loyalty test, a trick. He declines the lifetime benefits. The serpent, in this interpretation, didn't actually lie. It simply presented the choice, the path to a different kind of knowledge or reckoning. Middle management, perhaps Enki himself, just misread the memo, or Adapa misread the offer. Humanity's original sin? Maybe it wasn't disobedience in the moral sense, but rather a catastrophic decision to turn down a lifetime benefits package, opting instead for a short-lived freedom outside the corporate structure. It's pretty clear why this interpretation isn't typically taught in Sunday school. Monotheistic editors, striving to consolidate power and worship around a single, all-powerful deity, had every reason to scrub any hint of a mining subplot. A single, omnipotent God simply doesn't need gold to fix a planetary atmosphere or power a civilization. He creates by divine fiat, but multiple competing gods with very real, tangible atmospheric problems on their homeworld? They absolutely need resources, and they need labor to get them. The ingenious tactic was to collapse the entire Anunnaki pantheon, their diverse needs, and their complex supply chain into one singular Yahweh. This effectively hid the original context, the entire corporate structure behind E.DIN. The tactic worked so incredibly well that by the time Alexander the Great conquered Babylon, even the locals had largely forgotten the original boardroom minutes of E.DIN, leaving us with a sanitized, allegorical tale of a fairy tale orchard and a talking snake. The true, gritty details of an ancient mining operation faded into myth, replaced by a simpler, more spiritually digestible narrative. The narrative doesn't stop at E.DIN's gates. Ancient Sumerian trade records, meticulously kept, list caravans heading east to the Indus Valley, carrying red stone good for burning. Many scholars believe this was mercury gold amalgam, a sophisticated form of processed gold. This demonstrates an advanced understanding of metallurgy and a vast trade network. But let's cast our gaze further to Southeast Africa, specifically modern Zimbabwe. Here you'll find thousands of enigmatic stone circles, some spanning an incredible 30 meters across, often with nearby mine shafts plunging 90 feet deep into the earth. What makes these even more astonishing is their age. Carbon-dated timbers found within these structures put activity as far back as 50,000 BCE. Whoever was tunneling there possessed an advanced understanding of reef extraction and quartz crushing, techniques far beyond what any known local culture of that era could achieve. No known local culture at that time was smelting gold on such an industrial scale, with such precision. Yet the Anunnaki narrative, with its need for gold to fix Nibiru and its focus on the Abzu region, fits like a custom-made glove. It suggests a civilization with the technology and motivation to conduct such large-scale ancient mining operations, hinting at a presence that predates our conventional understanding of human history. If this completely flipped your mental table, if it made you see those ancient stories in a whole new light, then hit that subscribe button right now and drop the word E.DIN in the comments below. Fast forward to the modern age, and you start seeing strange echoes. Remember NASA's 1976 Viking probe? It detected a peculiar methane anomaly on Mars, a spike that occurred every Martian summer. While mainstream science suggests possible outgassing from buried microbial metabolism, fringe theorists, perhaps with a twinkle in their eye, argue it could be residual traces of ancient mining operations, the exhaust from long-dormant machinery. And consider our own ambitions. Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, isn't just planning a human colony on the red planet for exploration. They explicitly cite resource utilization as a primary driver. We're talking about mining Mars. Even our language, often without us realizing it, slips back into these ancient patterns. Colonization, extraction, terraforming, terms that could easily describe the Anunnaki's supposed project on Earth. Are we, as a species, merely repeating a cycle that began millennia ago? Are we the latest crew in a galaxy-wide mining franchise just clocking back in for the late shift, oblivious to the ancient blueprint we're following? It makes you wonder, doesn't it?